Picture this. It's 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. The VP of Engineering is standing in his kitchen in his boxers and a Yale hoodie, laptop open on the counter, watching 6.2 million lines of code disappear, not crash, not corrupt, disappear, line by line, file by file, like someone hit an eraser on the entire foundation of a $240 million product. His coffee goes cold. His hands start shaking. And somewhere across town, the woman they fired 11 hours earlier is sleeping like a baby. Hey Tangled Yarns family, it's Brett, and if you're new here, welcome, you picked a really good day to show up. Today's story is from the tech world, which, if you've been following this channel, you know is an absolute goldmine for corporate revenge tales. And this one? Chef's kiss. We're talking about a senior software architect, let's call her Alexis, who spent 7 years building a cybersecurity platform from the ground up. We're talking source code, proprietary algorithms, encryption protocols, the whole 9 yards. And then one day, a new CTO rolls in with his MBA and his synergy buzzwords and decides Alexis is legacy overhead. Spoiler alert, Alexis was not overhead. She was the foundation. And when they fired her to hire what he called better coders, well, the foundation crumbled. And it took $240 million worth of product with it. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and for the love of God, if you work in tech, pay attention to who actually owns the code you're deploying. Let's untangle this beautiful disaster. Alexis Chun had been at Sentinel Security for 7 years. Not just at the company, she'd basically built the company. When she was hired back in 2016, Sentinel was 4 guys in a WeWork, a seed round they got from one founder's rich uncle, and a pitch deck that promised next-generation threat detection. They had ideas. Alexis had skills. She built their entire core platform, Sentinel Guard, the thing that actual Fortune 500 companies paid 6 and 7 figures annually to license. We're talking real-time threat monitoring, AI-powered intrusion detection, automated response system stuff that made their competitors look like they were running antivirus software from 2005. And Alexis didn't just write code, she architected it. Every module, every integration point, every security layer, it had her fingerprints on it. By 2023, Sentinel Guard was protecting networks for 340 enterprise clients. Annual recurring revenue? Just north of $240 million. The founders had their Series C funding. They moved into a glass tower in Austin. They had a ping pong table, kombucha on tap, and a VP of culture whose entire job was posting inspirational quotes on Slack. And Alexis? She had the title of principal architect, a salary that was good but not great, and the quiet knowledge that if she ever left, this whole thing would collapse like a house of cards in a wind tunnel. She also had something else. Something she'd negotiated back in 2017 when the company was desperate to keep her after Google tried to poach her. But we'll get to that. In March of 2024, Sentinel hired a new CTO. His name was Derek Vaughn. Derek had an MBA from Wharton, a decade of leadership experience at a big consulting firm, and the kind of confidence that comes from never actually having to build anything yourself. His first week, he spent in observation mode, attending stand-ups, sitting in on code reviews, nodding thoughtfully while engineers explained technical debt and infrastructure dependencies. His second week, he started having optimization conversations. He called Alexis into his office on a Thursday. Didn't even wait for her to sit down before he started talking. He had this whole presentation queued up. Slides about modernizing the engineering org, increasing velocity, attracting top-tier talent. And then he got to slide 7. There was a pyramid. Old engineers at the bottom, smaller salaries, legacy mindset. New engineers at the top, higher salaries, cutting-edge expertise. Guess which category Alexis was in. Now, here's the thing about guys like Derek. They see tenure as a liability, not an asset. In their minds, if you've been somewhere for 7 years, you're not experienced, you're stale. And Alexis, at 34, with her 7 years of deep system knowledge, Derek saw dead weight. He said, and I quote, "Alexis, you've done great foundational work here, but we're entering a new phase. We need engineers who live and breathe modern frameworks. People who can move fast and break things." She asked him if he understood that Sentinel Guard was built on a custom framework specifically because off-the-shelf solutions couldn't handle their security requirements. He smiled, like she was a kindergarten teacher trying to explain nap time. That's exactly the kind of legacy thinking we're moving away from. Legacy thinking. The woman built a $240 million product from scratch, and this man who, let's be real, probably can't write a full loop calls her legacy thinking. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes my blood pressure spike. Middle managers who think leadership means having strong opinions about other people's expertise. 2 weeks later, Alexis got the calendar invite. No agenda, no context. Just her, Corinne from HR, and Derek. And if you've been following this series, you know nothing good ever happens in a meeting with HR and your boss and no one else. She walked in. Corinne had the sympathy face. You know, the one head tilted, soft eyes. Like she's about to tell you your dog died, but really she just helped orchestrate your professional execution. Derek was typing on his phone. Didn't even look up. Corinne slid the paper across the table. Alexis, we're restructuring the engineering department, and unfortunately your position is being eliminated. Position eliminated. That's corporate speak for we're firing you, but don't want to say firing because it sounds mean. The letter offered her 2 weeks severance, which, by the way, for 7 years of service is insultingly low, and a reference letter, which is hilarious considering they were about to publicly trash her work. Alexis asked why. Derek finally looked up from his phone. We're bringing in a new team. Specialists in Rust, Go, modern cloud-native architecture. Frankly, Alexis, we need engineers who can scale with where we're going, not where we've been. She nodded, didn't argue, didn't cry. Just said, understood. Signed the separation agreement right there. Handed over her badge, her laptop, her keycard. Corinne looked almost disappointed that she didn't make a scene. What they didn't know, what Derek specifically didn't know because he never bothered to read Alexis's original employment contract, was that back in 2017, Alexis had negotiated something very, very specific. IP Assignment Clause, Section 4, Subsection C. It stated that any code authored solely by Alexis Chen remained under a joint licensing agreement. Sentinel had unlimited rights to use, modify, and deploy the code as long as Alexis Chen remained a compensated employee or contractor of Sentinel Security, Inc. Termination of employment without transition to contractor status would trigger an immediate reversion of licensing rights. Translation? The code was hers. And the second they fired her, they lost the license to use it. Oh, and one more thing. Embedded in the source code, hidden in about 40 different files across the entire platform, was a small, elegant piece of logic, an employment verification check. Every 24 hours, the system pinged Sentinel's internal HR database. If Alexis Chen's employee status returned active, everything ran normally. If it returned anything else, the code would begin a cascading self-delete sequence, quietly, methodically, irreversibly. Alexis had built a kill switch. And Derek Vaughan had just pulled the trigger. Ryan Patel, VP of Engineering, woke up to 47 Slack notifications, 12 pager duty alerts, and a phone call from the new key that made his stomach drop. The overnight engineer said the platform was throwing errors, not normal errors, weird ones. Files missing, modules failing to load. Ryan logged in from his kitchen, pulled up the repo. Entire directories were gone, not corrupted, not overridden, just gone. Authentication modules, encryption libraries, the entire threat detection engine, vanishing. He refreshed, more files disappeared. It was like watching someone erase a whiteboard in real time. By 5:15 a.m., Ryan had called Derek. Derek, to his credit, actually answered. To his discredit, his first response was, "Did we get hacked?" Ryan told him it wasn't external. This was coming from inside the system, some kind of automated process. Derek asked if it was a disgruntled employee. Ryan said, "The only person we let go recently was Alexis." Silence. Long silence. Then, she wouldn't. Oh, Derek. Sweet arrogant Derek, she absolutely would. Well, technically, she didn't have to do anything. She'd automated the whole thing 7 years ago. That's the thing about really, really good engineers. They think in systems. They plan for contingencies, and they protect their work. By 6 a.m., Derek had assembled an emergency war room. Engineers, DevOps, the head of security, legal counsel on Zoom from her Peloton bike. They pulled logs, traced the deletion process, found the employment verification function embedded in the core authentication module. One of the senior engineers, guy named Marcus, who'd worked with Alexis for 5 years, let out a laugh, not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you make when you realize you're on the Titanic and someone just said it's unsinkable. Marcus knew Alexis wrote protection into her code. He just didn't know it was this. Derek freaked out. Started yelling about sabotage, about lawsuits, about calling the FBI. Marcus had to explain to him that this wasn't sabotage. This was licensing. Alexis owned the code. They just lost the license to use it. Legal was already pulling Alexis's employment contract. The one from 2017, the one that Derek had never read. Jessica Kim, General Counsel, read Section 4C aloud 3 times. Each time her face got paler. The language was airtight. Joint licensing agreement contingent on active employment or contractor relationship. She asked why the hell they'd agreed to that. Someone pulled up the emails from 2017. Alexis had threatened to leave. Google was offering her $320,000 in equity. They were a Series A startup paying her $140,000. The CEO at the time agreed to the IP clause to keep her. And now, 7 years later, that clause was eating their entire product catalog like Pac-Man. They tried to stop it. Called in engineers. Called in contractors. Tried to fork the code, restore from backups, anything. The backups had the same verification check, every version going back 3 years. They tried to comment out the deletion function. The code was obfuscated, nested in dependencies. Touching one thing broke 12 others. One guy suggested they just rewrite the whole platform. Derek asked how long that would take. 18 months, minimum. And that's if we even understand what Alexis built. Most of this is completely custom. By 8 a.m., clients were reporting outages. By 9 a.m., the status page looked like a Christmas tree made of red error lights. By 10 a.m., the CEO was in the war room. Mitchell Hargrove, founder, the guy who'd hired Alexis back in 2016 and then stepped back to let the professional management run things. He took one look at the screens, one look at Derek and said 6 words. Someone tell me we can fix this. No one spoke. Okay, I need you to understand the magnitude of what's happening here. This isn't just the website is down. This is a cybersecurity platform. Hospitals, banks, government contractors, they're all using Sentinel Guard to protect their networks. And right now, those networks are unprotected. Every minute this system is offline, Sentinel is liable, breach of contract, service level agreement violations, potential lawsuits from clients whose data might be compromised because the protection they paid for just stopped working. This isn't a $240 million problem because that's what the product is worth. It's a $240 million problem because that's how much revenue is actively evaporating. And Derek is realizing that he fired the only person who can fix it. Mitchell asked the obvious question. Can we hire Alexis back? Derek, red-faced, said, she signed a separation agreement. Jessica, the lawyer, corrected him. She signed a termination acknowledgement. There's no non-compete. No NDA beyond standard confidentiality. She can work wherever she wants. Mitchell turned to Derek. Call her. Derek called at 10:47 a.m. Alexis answered on the 3rd ring. Alexis, hey. Derek, listen, we've run into a technical issue with the platform and we could use your consultation. Would you be available to come in today? Oh, that's interesting. What kind of technical issue? Just some code integrity problems, probably something simple. You know the system better than anyone. I see. And you're reaching out because, silence. We'd like to bring you back on a contractor basis, temporarily, to resolve this. At what rate? We can discuss. Derek, I'm in the middle of something. If you want to make a formal offer, have Jessica send it in writing. Include the hourly rate, the scope, and the contract terms. She hung up. At 11:30, Jessica sent the offer. $200 per hour, $10.99 contractor, 2-week engagement to resolve platform stability issues. At 11:45, Alexis sent her counter-proposal. $850 per hour, minimum 480-hour commitment paid upfront. Full IP assignment to Sentinel upon completion, but only for new code written during the engagement. Existing code remained under the original 2017 licensing agreement unless renegotiated separately. Also, a formal apology from Derek Vaughn in writing, acknowledging that her termination was an error in judgment. Derek lost his mind, started yelling about extortion. About how they'd sue her into the ground. Jessica shut him down immediately. She's not extorting anyone. She owns the license. We terminated the agreement. She's offering to sell us a new license. This is actually pretty standard. Mitchell looked at the numbers. $850 per hour, 480 hours. $408,000. Then he looked at the status board. 340 clients offline. Potential contract breaches in the tens of millions. He turned to Derek. Send the apology. The apology arrived at 1:17 p.m. Dear Alexis, upon reflection, I recognize that my assessment of your contributions to Sentinel security was incomplete. Your termination was a decision I now understand to have been short-sighted. I apologize for any professional disrespect you experienced. Sincerely, Derek Vaughn, Chief Technology Officer. It was the corporate equivalent of a hostage video. But it was in writing. Alexis read it twice, forwarded it to her personal email, printed a copy. Then she accepted the contract. She walked into the office at 3 p.m., visitor badge clipped to her jacket. The same jacket she'd worn when they fired her. The war room went silent when she entered. Derek wouldn't look at her. Ryan looked exhausted. Mitchell stood up, shook her hand, and said, "Thank you for coming." She asked for a workstation. They cleared one. She logged in using a contractor account they set up, opened the repo. First thing she did, commented out the deletion function, stopped the bleeding. Second, restored the core modules from a clean fork she'd maintained privately. Pushed the changes. By 4:30, the platform was stabilizing. By 6 o'clock 90% of clients were back online. By 8 p.m. the status page was green. You'd think that would be the end of it. Alexis saves the day, gets her $408,000, everyone moves on. But remember, she only licensed the immediate fix. The core IP still hers. And Sentinel still needed a long-term solution. They had an emergency board meeting that night, virtual. Mitchell explained the situation. They had 3 options. 1. Rebuild the entire platform from scratch. 18 to 24 months, $15 to $20 million in dev costs, and they lose most of their clients in the meantime. 2. Acquire the IP from Alexis outright. Price, to be determined, but likely astronomical. 3. Hire Alexis back permanently with a compensation package that made the IP transfer worth her while. One board member asked the obvious question, what if she says no? They made the offer 2 days later. Senior Vice President of Engineering. $340,000 salary, 2.5% equity with full vesting acceleration. Seat on the Technical Advisory Board. And the big one. A one-time IP acquisition payment of $4.2 million for full, irrevocable transfer of all code ownership to Sentinel. Alexis read it 3 times. It was more money than she'd ever imagined making, but it wasn't about the money. Not entirely. She sent back a counter-proposal. She'd accept the SVP role and the equity. She'd transfer the IP, but the payment wasn't $4.2 million. It was $4.2 million plus one non-negotiable condition, Derek Vaughn's resignation. Mitchell called an executive session. Just him, the board chair, and the coup. The board chair said, "She's asking us to fire our CTO." Mitchell said, "She's asking us to fire the guy who almost destroyed a $240 million product line because he didn't read a contract." They took a vote, unanimous. Derek Vaughn was asked to resign on March 28, 2024. The press release called it pursuing other opportunities. The internal email said he was transitioning to focus on advisory work. The engineers knew the truth. They all knew, Alexis didn't just get her job back. She got Derek's career. Alexis signed the agreement on April 2nd, $4.2 million wired to her account, as VP title, her old office back but bigger. And on her first day back, the engineering team threw her a welcome party. Not mandated by HR, not organized by culture committee. Just engineers who'd watched the whole thing unfold and knew exactly what she'd pulled off. Someone made a cake that said "Better Coders" with a question mark. Alexis laughed so hard she cried. The story leaked, of course. Tech industry gossip travels faster than fiber optic cable. Within 2 weeks, there were posts on Hacker News, Blind, and Reddit. Heard a CTO at a cybersecurity company fired their lead architect and the entire platform, self-destructed. Someone tell me this is real. It was real. Sentinel's PR team went into damage control mode, but honestly, the narrative that emerged wasn't that damaging. The industry framed it as a lesson in respecting your engineers and reading your contracts. Alexis became a minor legend in certain circles. As for Derek, he took a sabbatical for 4 months. Posted some stuff on LinkedIn about leadership journeys and learning experiences. Eventually landed a VP role at a mid-tier SaaS company. Smaller title, smaller company. Definitely smaller ego. One of his new reports left a Glassdoor review 6 months later. Micromanages everything but doesn't understand the technical work. Constantly talks about his time as Sentinel. We Googled it. Now we understand why he left. Alexis, meanwhile, thrived. She rebuilt the engineering culture as Sentinel. Hired slowly, focused on retention. Implemented actual mentorship programs instead of pizza parties. Under her leadership, the platform expanded. New features, new clients. By 2025, Sentinel Guard's annual recurring revenue hit $310 million, and Alexis's 2.5% equity? As Sentinel's last private valuation, her stake was worth just under $18 million. But here's my favorite part of this whole story. In Alexis's new office, behind her desk, there's a framed document. It's not her MAT diploma, not her SVP offer letter. It's Derek's apology email. People ask her why she keeps it. She tells them it's a reminder, not of the revenge, not even of the vindication. It's a reminder that your work speaks for itself. You don't have to defend your value to people who don't understand it. You just have to protect it. And make sure you have it in writing. Let's talk about what just happened here, because this story is a masterclass in leverage, planning, and the sheer poetry of a well-executed contract clause. First, Alexis didn't destroy anything. She didn't hack the system. She didn't sabotage the code. She built a licensing mechanism 7 years in advance, and the company's own decision triggered it. That's not revenge. That's infrastructure. Second, the kill switch. Some of you are probably thinking, is that legal? Can you do that? And the answer is yes. If you own the code and the license agreement specifies that termination ends the license, you can absolutely include verification logic. It's basically DRM for source code. Is it aggressive? Oh, absolutely. But so is firing someone to replace them with better people and then realizing you have no idea how anything works. Third, and this is important, Alexis didn't just walk away rich. She got her apology. She got Derek's job. She got vindication. Because here's the truth, money is great, but what people really want when they've been wronged is for the other person to admit they were wrong. And Derek had to do that, in writing, with his title on it. That's not just winning. That's winning with style. Now, I know some of you are wondering, is this real? Did this actually happen? And here's what I'll say. The tech industry is full of stories like this. IP disputes, licensing battles, engineers who embedded protections in their code because they knew that one day someone would try to screw them. This specific story, it's made the rounds in certain circles. The details might be smoothed out, some names definitely changed, but the core lesson is real. Never underestimate the person who built the thing you depend on. Alright, Tangled Yarns family, here's where you come in. Drop a comment. Have you ever embedded a protection clause in your work? A contract term, a piece of code, a client relationship that you knew was your insurance policy? Or have you ever watched someone get fired and immediately realized the company was screwed? I read every single comment, and some of your stories are wild. I might feature them in a future episode. If you love this story, smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more corporate checkmate episodes coming, plus some dark yarns, mysteries, and personal tailies that'll make this look tame. Next week, I'm bringing you the story of an HR manager who got fired for not being a team player and then discovered she was the only person in the company with the master password to the payroll system. Yeah, it's that kind of story. Until then, remember, read your contracts, know your worth, and for the love of God, if someone built the foundation your company stands on, maybe don't call them legacy overhead. I'm Brett, this is Tangled Yarns, and that yarn, officially untangled. See you in the next one.